It doesn't matter what entry that you started with, we all have a nostalgic feeling about the COD that we grew up on.
Bravo 6. Going dark.
From playing offline with the fam, online with your friends, or raging at randoms in a public match because they won't get on the objective. In this video, I want to look back at where COD came from, walk through each release to hopefully spark some memories of the good old days of COD for everyone. All right. So it's the early 2000s and a company known as 2015 Inc. had just released the very first Medal of Honor game. The game was incredibly well received due to its historical accuracy, cinematic presentation, authentic atmosphere, varied gameplay, and innovative mechanics. The success of this, plus the release of Battlefield 1942, which also received critical acclaim, a few developers from 2015 Inc. decided to split off and do their own thing. These developers would form a little startup known as Infinity Ward, and in 2003, taking the best pieces of Medal of Honor and Battlefield and implementing them into a faster paced arcade style shooter, a game which they would name Call of Duty. And thus, the birth of one of the most popular franchises in history was upon us. The game contained intense single player missions and a wonderful multiplayer that would set the standard for what the franchise would become in years to come. In 2005, Activision launched Call of Duty 2, a game that contained the World War II theme while enhancing the established COD formula to an exceptional level. Its standout feature was a captivating campaign that delved into the experiences of 4 distinct soldiers during the war. The multiplayer aspect garnered widespread acclaim, offering classic games like Search and Destroy, TDM, and Capture the Flag, akin to those in the modern titles. This multiplayer excellence led to the emergence of a competitive scene that briefly rivaled Counter-Strike, a powerhouse in gaming at the time. The highly awaited Call of Duty 3 was launched by Activision. A notable shift in this installment was the involvement of Treyarch, a developer who would later become a fan favorite within the Call of Duty community. While Treyarch had collaborated with Infinity Ward on the early games, this was their opportunity to demonstrate their capabilities independently. However, the reception fell short of expectations as Call of Duty 3 failed to introduce significant changes from its predecessors, leading to a lack of genuine excitement among players. Now, in 2007, Infinity Ward would return and release perhaps, according to certain people, the greatest release they've ever put out. Definitely the best at that point in time. Infinity Ward's magnum opus, Modern Warfare. And if not clear by the title, it would shift the series to the Modern Warfare settings, revolutionizing FPS gaming with a gripping narrative, realistic graphics, and iconic multiplayer advancements like kill streaks, camos, and perks. Praised as a landmark title, earning widespread acclaim, and considered a turning point for the franchise by setting a standard not only for COD's future releases, but multiplayer experiences moving forward. 2008 would mark the return of Treyarch. They decided to make a bold move by shifting from the success of the modern era back to World War II for World at War. Players lauded its campaign for offering the most realistic portrayal of World War II warfare within the franchise. Despite the historical focus, the multiplayer aspect still delivered the classic Call of Duty thrill. However, what truly set World at War apart was the introduction of the iconic Zombies mode, making Treyarch's distinct style and setting them apart from Infinity Ward. While for some it didn't quite match the overwhelming reception of Modern Warfare, it certainly began a rivalry between the fans on just which developer truly was the best. A rivalry that continues to this day. In 2009, Infinity Ward would give their fans even more ammo to fight with as they released Modern Warfare 2, a game which not only builds upon the success of its predecessor, but surpasses it in many ways, earning the praise as one of the top 3 COD games of all time. The single-player campaign continues the gripping narrative with enhanced storytelling and jaw-dropping cinematic sequences, solidifying its place as a standout title. Meanwhile, the multiplayer component sets a new standard, widely regarded as the pinnacle of the franchise's multiplayer experience. One of the big additions was adding the ability to customize your streaks and earn that highly coveted nuke. And on top of all this, they added their own third mode called Spec Ops. Treyarch made a monumental entry into COD history with the debut of the Black Ops series, marking the beginning of an iconic franchise. Building on the success of World at War, Black Ops 1 elevated every aspect to new heights. With the campaign continuing the storyline from the previous title, the multiplayer experience was enhanced with a plethora of memorable weapons, greatly designed maps that were both enjoyable and strategic, and with this entry introducing some of the most iconic in the franchise, Nuketown and firing range. On top of this, we got an improved zombies mode that not only started the zombie storyline, but also introduced engaging Easter eggs. These Easter eggs added a creative and interactive element to the classic ground-based zombies experience, allowing players to progress through the stories in innovative ways. Also, can we talk about how this game had the best main menu in gaming history? Infinity Ward's highly anticipated conclusion to the Modern Warfare trilogy brought with it an epic campaign, the introduction of Spec Ops survival mode, and further refinements to multiplayer mechanics. Despite these additions, the game fell slightly short of expectations for many players. Reviews were mixed, but generally positive, highlighting the game's cinematic storytelling and solid multiplayer experience. Some critics noticed a lack of innovation compared to its predecessors, particularly Modern Warfare 2. While staying true to the successful formula of previous entries, Modern Warfare 3 was criticized for featuring fewer memorable weapons, maps, and modes, which may have contributed to its mixed reception. If you're looking for a reason to blame the mediocre score, it could have been because Infinity Ward's founding members Jason West and Vince Zampella left to form a new studio that you probably recognize, Respawn Entertainment. Sledgehammer was drafted as a new developer to help out with this project, and you'll see them get a crack at their own game soon enough. Call of Duty Black Ops 2, released in 2012, sits as Treyarch's magnum opus. If Modern Warfare 2 isn't your top COD of all time, this one is likely your pick. The game decides to go away from modern combat and sets itself in the near future with a narrative spanning decades. The game introduced a decision-based storyline where players' choices impacted the outcome. The innovation added a layer of depth and replayability rarely seen in FPS games at the time. The multiplayer experience also introduced the incredible Pick 10 system that allowed players to customize their loadouts with greater flexibility. Black Ops 2 also expanded the zombies mode, a narrative-driven experience with multiple maps and Easter eggs for players to uncover. Call of Duty Ghost, released in 2013, marked a departure from the established formulas of the franchise. Ghost introduced new gameplay mechanics and narrative elements. One of the most notable innovations was the dynamic maps feature, where environmental elements could change during gameplay. The game also introduced the Extinction mode, a cooperative experience where players fought against alien creatures. This was Infinity Ward's attempt at an alternative to the traditional zombies mode. However, despite these innovations, Ghost received mixed reviews from both critics and players. While praised for its technical advancements, including enhanced graphics and fluid gameplay mechanics, it faced mechanics for its lackluster storytelling and multiplayer experience, which some felt didn't reach the height of previous Call of Duty titles. And who can forget the groundbreaking Fish AI? In 2014, Call of Duty took a leap into the jetpack era, with Sledgehammer Games getting their shot as a new lead developer. The era began with Advanced Warfare, set in the futuristic landscape and featuring exoskeletons, or exos. This granted players enhanced mobility through boosted jumps, dashes, and mid-air maneuvers. This innovation added a vertical dimension to gameplay, fundamentally changing how engagements were approached. In multiplayer, Advanced Warfare introduced the Pick 13 system, allowing players to tailor their loadouts with a mix of weapons, attachments, perks, and score streaks. Despite receiving acclaim for its fresh take on the series, dynamic gameplay, and compelling campaign, Advanced Warfare also faced criticism for its heavy emphasis on microtransactions and occasional balancing issues in multiplayer. I mean, who can forget the BAU 27 Obsidian Steed and the ASM-1 Speakeasy? Also, for the first time, another studio tackled zombies. Raven Software and Sledge introduced Exo Zombies. It first appeared on the map Riot in Exo Survival as a bonus round, but not as an actual standalone game mode. Believe it or not, this game was generally well received for its innovative approach and the new experiences it brought to the Call of Duty franchise. Call of Duty Black Ops 3, released in 2015, continued the trend of futuristic warfare and introduced several innovative features to the franchise. Developed by Treyarch, the game was set in a dystopian future where advanced technology and cybernetic enhancements had become the norm. One of the standout additions was the introduction of specialist characters in multiplayer, each with their own unique ability and weapon. Black Ops 3 also expanded on the move mechanics introduced in Advanced Warfare, with players having access to boost jumps, wall running, and enhanced sliding. Black Ops 3 featured a revamped zombies mode that would continue with and finalize the zombies storyline as we knew it. Boots on the ground enthusiasts still struggle to accept the jetpack style of COD during this release, but in terms of how to execute a futuristic style of COD, this was about as good as you could have hoped for. Overall, the game had relatively positive reviews, but was held back by an overcomplicated and confusing campaign narrative that, despite it providing a co-op experience, experience is sometimes difficult to go back and replay. Infinity Ward's return with 2016's Infinite Warfare would mark the beginning of a downward spiral for Call of Duty, one that many fans still see as a struggle to recover from. Even those who enjoyed the jetpack era games were longing for a return to classic gameplay. When Infinite Warfare was revealed, fans were shocked to learn that Infinity Ward wasn't just sticking to the futuristic path, but was venturing even further into the future, a move that did not sit well with the community. The reveal trailer quickly became one of the most disliked videos on YouTube at the time, highlighting the backlash. The game's movement system felt like a step back from the previous Black Ops 3 release, and the map design was criticized for being dull, uninspired, and way too big for their own good. However, amidst these criticisms, the campaign stood out as a strong point, earning praise as one of the better single-player experiences in recent COD history. Also, Infinity Ward went away from extinction and tried their hand at zombies, introducing zombies in Spaceland, which was a very unique experience. The problem was Infinity Ward struggled to get people to play it, and these things weren't enough to convince a tired fan base to invest another $60. So, in an attempt to boost pre-orders, Infinity Ward also bundled the game with a remastered version of the original Modern Warfare. And unfortunately, the remaster overshadowed the game it was meant to promote. Sledgehammer Games, the team that catapulted the franchise into the future, would return and slingshot us all the way back to World War II with the appropriately named Call of Duty World War II. The game took players back to the roots of the franchise with a gritty and authentic portrayal of World War II. The game aimed to capture the visceral intensity and emotional weight of the war's most iconic battles. In multiplayer, World War II introduced the War Mode, an objective-based gameplay experience that mirrored real historical battles. Players could relive iconic moments like the Battle of Stalingrad or the liberation of Paris, adding a narrative-driven element to the traditional multiplayer format. They even changed up the regular between-match experience by introducing a completely unique idea of using a hub, which would be named Headquarters. Okay, maybe they copied Destiny a little bit, but that's besides the point. This hub allowed you to run around, play little mini games. You could go to a firing range to work on your shot, then go to a 1v1 pit, get murked by some demons, and then realize your shot still wasn't good enough. The possibilities were endless. Also, you could open a bunch of supply drops. World War II also included a zombies mode that would combine survivor horror elements with the normal Call of Duty zombies formula, which it didn't hit the mark for everyone, but was a welcome addition to the game. While World War II faced criticism for some technical issues and balancing issues in multiplayer, it was generally praised for its immersive single-player campaign, nostalgic World War II setting, and the return to the boots on the ground gameplay. However, the issue that this game had was just largely out of their control due to the massive popularity of a game I'm sure most of you have heard of, Fortnite. And this eventually led to the complete overhaul of the game, which did bring it back to life. However, it was a bit too late, as a downside of a strictly year release scheduled for COD would mean the next release was right around the corner. Black Ops 4 stuck with boots on the ground formula, but various additions all added up to a lackluster multiplayer experience that some people loved and some people hated. The game had an incredibly high time to kill, mixed with rapidly regenerating stim shots that made nearly everyone a bullet sponge. Otherwise, it was just a very basic approach to multiplayer that players had started to grow tired of. Black Ops 4 also was the first entry to release without a campaign, opting to follow the success of Fortnite and release a battle royale mode called Blackout. Fortunately for Treyarch, Blackout was actually a super fun mode, and it allowed them to get away with not including a campaign. Now, Zombies was also here, and for the first time, Treyarch kind of altogether missed the mark with it. Changes made to the perk system and damage health system were not inherently bad in a vacuum, but they were just changes that nobody asked for and certainly didn't appreciate. A mess of a game with a messy response from the community. Now, not to be confused with Modern Warfare of 2007 or the Modern Warfare remaster of 2016, Infinity Ward would attempt to reboot the iconic series. They placed a huge focus on revamping the graphics and sound design, which improved the immersiveness of the experience and was praised by fans of the franchise for reimagining the stale formula that had become an expectation of the fan base. In multiplayer, Modern Warfare introduced a revamped, customizable loadout system, allowing players to mix and match weapons, attachments, perks, and kill streaks to suit their playstyle. The gunfight mode brought intense 2v2 battles in tight maps, while the ground war mode offered large-scale warfare with vehicles and dynamic objectives. The campaign also didn't pull any punches. The emphasis was on a narrative-driven story. The campaign presented a morally complex narrative, highlighting the gray areas of modern conflict and the difficult decisions faced by soldiers and operatives. This game saw the introduction of a few questionable changes to the formula, such as removal of red dots on the minimap, getting rid of dead silence as a perk, and the addition of a new mechanic, doors. While this new style obviously wasn't going to be accepted by everyone, it did feel like a bit of a return to Prime for Infinity Ward, and honestly, a lot of people's favorite Call of Duty since Black Ops 3. To make matters even better for the franchise and for Infinity Ward, they decided to release a free-to-play expansion on Modern Warfare called Warzone. Warzone was a battle royale similar to Blackout, but with a fresh Modern Warfare coat of paint. To be honest, Warzone nearly single-handedly revived the COD franchise. This game exploded with popularity, partially because of its free-to-play nature, but also because of it being an integration of familiar Call of Duty mechanics. They also added something called the Gulag as a way to get back into the game, and it was a welcome system that no other battle royale had at the time, and streamlined one of the few complaints that people had with the style of game, that if you die right away, you would be spectating the entire time. The Gulag, mixed with the buyback system, allowed for players to get back into the game and continue to compete. Moving forward, Warzone would continue to expand alongside the new releases. Some to mixed responses, but nothing will take away from how it completely took over the world for a period of time. In May 2019, it was reported that Treyarch would take over the Call of Duty 2020 project following the tensions between Sledgehammer Games and Raven Software during the development of the game. On August 4th, 2020, Activision announced that Treyarch and Raven Software were co-developing the game, which would be known as Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. The two studios focused on different parts of the game. Raven Software designed the campaign, while Treyarch developed its multiplayer and zombies mode. The game was pretty well received altogether. The campaign and multiplayer were giving overall positive reviews for the fun gameplay, which meshed together the Modern Warfare engine with a nice Treyarch twist to keep it unique. The campaign was also touted for a good variety of missions, the customization of your character, and the multiple endings that added replayability to the game. Also, most Zombies fans enjoyed a return to form for Treyarch, with these zombies being a lot better than the Black Ops 4 entry. Sledgehammer Games would return again. They had done some innovative things with the series in their previous releases, but they had yet to really hit the jackpot and release a Modern Warfare Black Ops 2. Unfortunately for Sledgehammer, not only was this one not going to be that for them, it perhaps was the opposite. For many players, there was just not a lot to like about this game. The game did very little to innovate from the previous releases, and it felt repetitive. And although the game released with 18 maps on launch, the enjoyment of them quickly dropped off. The game was also riddled with performance issues and problems with optimization that ruined its hit detection, server stability, and matchmaking. It was a disaster to find a game, and it was a nightmare when you actually got to play. The campaign and zombies mode are barely worth mentioning, as they were just as repetitive and predictable and lack any of the replayability or substance of the previous few entries. Hopefully, the next release would help them get back on track. Unfortunately, the highly anticipated sequel to 2019's Modern Warfare reboot was quite the mess. To boot, they had decided that they wanted to double down on removing the minimap pings, which people this time were much less forgiving of. This change essentially defeats the purpose of running a suppressor, and also just generally changes an integral part of nearly every past COD. They also changed the perk system, which also meant Dead Silence was back to a field upgrade, and on top of that, they decided to add louder than normal footstep sounds, which essentially punished people for playing aggressive in a series that was built off fast-paced action. Gunplay felt awful. There was slow or non-existent strafe and movement speed, especially when compared to 2019's Modern Warfare. Not to mention the game just looked bad. In just one release, Infinity Ward went from being touted for its graphical improvements to being criticized for how awful the visuals of their game were. This was a real disappointment for fans of the franchise. The campaign was nowhere near as good as MW19, but they did introduce a new mode called DMZ. Out of all the negative reception of the game, DMZ was actually praised. The funny part, after just 1 year, they stopped supporting it. The good news was Activision had announced they would be going away from the yearly release model, so in a couple years time when the next game was released, they would hopefully provide something fresh and enjoyable after an extra year of development. Plus, this would allow Infinity Ward to hopefully improve and expand upon MW2 to make it an enjoyable experience. Just kidding. Activision would quickly go back on their word and decide that not only would they release another game the following year, but it would be the trilogy game for the Modern Warfare reboot. Except, it wasn't by Infinity Ward. It was given to Sledgehammer Games. Okay, regardless, this game has definitely been an improvement on the last two releases. It had better maps because it just took every map from the original Modern Warfare 2, so it was pretty easy to have solid maps. They reverted the changes to movement and saw the return of minimap pings. However, when the entire selling point of your game is returning features and maps from different and better games, you're already fighting an uphill battle to be truly successful. Outside of these changes, the game is largely the exact same as Modern Warfare 2. A bad one. not the good one. In fact, this game itself was meant to be an expansion on Modern Warfare 2 before Activision at the last minute decided to pivot it to a full release. So the game at best is slightly better than MW2 in the multiplayer regard, but oh boy, is the campaign not good. Likely a symptom of a rushed release date, the campaign in Modern Warfare 3 is tragically bad and perhaps the worst in the history of the franchise. Zombies was also thrown together quickly. It's pretty much the Warzone map mixed with DMZ mixed with zombies. Surprisingly, the community really enjoyed it, but again, the support was pulled after a few months for Treyarch to go work on their 2024 game. And that brings us to where we are today. Call of Duty is in a bit of a limbo state. Many leaks and speculations point towards a better future for Call of Duty though. Treyarch rarely disappoints and they are next up on the release schedule with Gulf War or Black Ops 6. So what do you think? Is Call of Duty gonna make a comeback, or do you think the best days of the franchise our history? If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you love Call of Duty and podcasts, go sub to mine called Going Dark. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.